So let's get into the preliminary steps about how to actually control this incessant nagging little voice between your ears. You up for that? Okay, good. So here's first step. The first step is to number one, recognize that you have a little voice and that little voice is not necessarily you. You have to be able to step outside yourself and be able to disassociate yourself with it a little. It's not you. It's a part of you, but you have a lot of little voices. Like I said, it's the composite of old experiences, of what other people tell you, other people's advice, and you've got to be able to say that it's not necessarily you. That's number one. Number two, you've got to learn to interrupt it and stop it. So I'm going to give you a little way to do that. So I want you to remember you saw my pictures of my little voice. So pretend like your little voice is sitting right here. And what I want you to do when it starts saying, you can't do it, it's too risky, you're not smart enough, whatever, all I want you to do is take your hand and just go, stop. Come on, do it right now. Stop. Come on, hit it harder. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Stop. That feel good? Okay, good. Now I know it seems crazy, but you've got to have a way to interrupt that chatter, because what happens for most people, they actually believe everything that the little voice says to them. I do too sometimes. But you've got to understand that it's not you, and you stop it. Choose. Then, step number 3, once you've stopped it for a second, then find the appropriate technique, the right technique that you can use, which we're covering some here, and we'll cover some more later, the right technique to handle that specific little voice so that you can turn it around. And once you know how to do that, you can do that in 30 seconds or less. Got it? Excellent. Step number 4. Step number 4 is to do your best, if you have the time, to isolate the origin of that little voice. Where did that thought come from? When did I start thinking like that? Is that me talking? Is that my dad talking? Is that my mom talking? Is that my preacher talking? Who is that? Is that really me? And see, the minute you start to question it, what psychologists will tell you, you begin to disassociate with the behavior. Now you can control and master it because it's not mastering you. Does this make sense? Good. So let's go. And the 5th step of this thing is that once you're able to begin to understand the origin, I want you to have one thing in mind. I want you to assume that what's inside of you, not the little voices, but what's inside behind all those little voices is someone very, very big and somebody very, very great. See, I work with hundreds of thousands of people over the last 25, 30 years in over 25 different countries, as I've said. People with small business, people with large business, people with multinational corporations, people with just their families and a small one-person business. And the one thing I'm going to tell you is that most people, and I'm going to talk about you right now, one thing I know about you, if you're on this program, you have no idea how big you are. Now I want you to notice what your little voice says when I say that. That's right, I know you. I know you have no idea how big you are, that you sell yourself way shorter than you should. The reason I know this is I have you in my programs. I've worked with people like you before, and the results you're able to accomplish in a short period of time are amazing once the little voice is out of the way. You've got to know that inside of you is a bigger, better, more capable person, and they become almost obsessed with getting to who that bigger and better person is. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. First of all, take a deep breath. Let it go. I know that was a little heavy for you, but I want you to really feel that. You know I'm right. You know you're bigger than you give yourself credit. And you know that everything that you want is right within your grasp if you just get those stupid little voices out of the way, right? So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. Before we go to the next chapter, before we go to the next section, I want you to review the 5 first steps to mastering your little voice that I just went through, all 5 of them. Make sure you got them down, particularly the one that says when that little voice comes in there, you just go, stop. Most important part. You can choose the thoughts you want to have. And once you do, you're in control of not only your little voice, but you've also mastered your destiny.